Hey guys, it's Julesy and I'm back with a much requested video for my smart brown girls. Yeah. So I oftentimes get a ton of requests about doing like sort of a woke, like how to become woke book list. I kind of hint at or address my absolute disapproval of the homophobic, misogynistic, anti-black woman rhetoric that has found such a safe space in the black community, and more specifically has now been paraded around and packaged as though it's part of a empowerment or history lesson on the black people at large. I want to give you a whole speech about the problems with how easily we accept homophobia, but that's another video too. Now, the truth is film tends to travel so much further than books because it's easier to digest. And truth be told, there are not a lot of films that aptly package the kind of history that you would need to learn. Because of that, my first suggestion is honestly, especially for black women, if we have an interest in our history, a lot of that can come from reading fiction-based books by black women authors. It tends to be fiction because a lot of black women, in order to get published and be taken seriously and to be seen as people of value in the literary world, had to fashion their work into fiction because it would not be accepted any otherwise. The biggest thing here is no matter what I suggest, what really helps you is to employ critical thinking. It is not just we read things and take it as fact. It is that we read things and we think about them in context of what world this person was living in when they wrote it, what world are they constructing in their writings, and how does this apply to the world that I currently live in. One film that I can suggest is concerning violence. It is a documentary from the writings of Frantz Fanon, specifically The Wretched of the Earth. It is a book that I would recommend, but I honestly don't foresee people who haven't read any other book on any sort of history reading his books, because he was a native French speaker. I believe he was from Martinique, and the French language when translated to English is very long-winded. So it gets a little repetitive. It's not necessarily an easy read, so I think Concerning Violence is a really great way to absorb the more important aspects of that book. Also is like a film that hints at the erasure of black women in a lot of these discussions. Interview chunks from Thomas Sankara, who was president of Burkina Faso before the CIA killed him, the fight for independence in Malawi and the women's role in that fight. When you read these things and you have a critical interest and then you're like, oh, okay, this is interesting, let me look up this person, let me Google. You know, I don't necessarily think Wikipedia is that bad of a source, but the thing is, you don't just read Wikipedia and then claim to have knowledge on things. Wikipedia, in order to keep a certain level of ethics, requires citations are needed, and so a lot of the citations are to actual news clippings and books and films that are of merit that you can click through to, and if you can't find it on the internet, you can go to your local library, and then you just keep digging, right? So like for me, I read Bell Hooks Communion and I was like, okay, I'm gonna be a feminist, yes, 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 yes. Then I go and I start reading, like I read Sister Outsider by Audre Lorde, or I read When the Chicken Has Come to Roost, and then I just really came into my own identity of who I wanted to be as a person, and I started to realize that some of the stuff that I was reading, I didn't really agree with. I just didn't know anything. I was really into Marcus Garvey when I was in high school, and then I started to read into what became of, for fiction, as I said, with black women, Zora Neale Hurston, reader. I constantly reference Zora Neale Hurston anytime I talk about books to read because she really speaks to the Southern black person. Even the colloquialisms that Zora Neale Hurston uses in her writings and the way that she writes, it gives intellect and pride to a community that would often, for the longest times, we as black people turned our noses up to. Bell Hooks, even though I don't necessarily agree with her, with Bell Hooks, I believe reading her because she is so thorough in backing up her opinion, no matter how wrong I think she is, it forces you to really think about and therefore articulate why it is you don't agree with her. And it really helps you to shape your identity as a woman, whether it is as a black woman who wants to love hip-hop or a black woman who wants to love black men. You know, it really forces you to really kind of articulate and be able to stand strong in your identity however you shape your black womanness. The study overall of U.S. history. Now, I took AP US history in high school, so if you're in high school, college, or any sort of schooling, seeking out certain classes and employing your critical thinking and kind of, you know, demanding that a certain amount of knowledge. When I was taking AP English, I did a lot of African American literature because I really wanted to focus on my African American heritage. Thank God Oprah had that book club, because I don't know, without Oprah book club, I don't know if I could have got away with just reading Toni Morrison for all of 11th grade. And then in U.S. history, because I had read these books that talk about the civil rights movement, and they were fiction, but they hit it on all these notes in Gloria Naylor, in James Baldwin, in Zora Neale Hurston, in Toni Morrison, in Maya Angelou, that I could then take that critical thinking, and we are talking about manifest destiny, and we are talking about the resettlement of Native Americans, or we are talking about civil rights, or slavery and the necessary evil as it's taught in class, that I could employ critical thinking to think a little deeper in those subjects and do my own research. At the time when we were still using Netscape, Google wasn't even around when I was a senior in high school. But not relying necessarily on the curriculum of the teacher to just be how you learn. It is that you have a vested interest in these things and you are pursuing your knowledge. The more everyday side, I would suggest following certain writers. Some of them, like Jamelle Bouie, also have tiny letters or email lists that they send out weekly. He's really good at tying in just all sorts of historical facts into everything that's happening in today. And then from there, you will learn about different people who are in that space, who are doing the work. Watch their interviews. Everyone does TED Talks. They all do. Kimberly Crenshaw, a bunch of videos on YouTube, and she's giving different talks about different aspects of intersection between blackness and womanhood, and the implications on a larger scale, both in the political structure, in the everyday livelihood, in all these things that kind of level into our lives. So if there have been any that you have enjoyed that have helped you expand your knowledge, comment down below in the description box. But please just remember, it's not just that simply that one film is problematic. It is not just that black men can be misogynistic. Black women definitely play some role in upholding that structure, and be conscious of how much we are trained to accept something that's always telling us that black women ain't shit. If you'd like to see more of this content, be sure to become a patron and support Smart Brown Girl in 2017. Deuces!